Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. I am Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, coming off 370 plus on FanDuel last night, Coach. Nicely done. Are you ready to do it again?
You know what? I'm ready to move that number up. I'm chasing 400, buddy. That's what I'm doing. But no, it was a fun night. It was FanDuel specifically really did well both on the hybrid and the GPP, and had some decent finishes both on DraftKings and Yahoo. Now, it was a challenge, man. I'll admit it. We had that Tobias Harris news break, really late in the process. I was like 1 minute from posting lineups, and then he tested positive for COVID, the protocol deal, so he was out, and it just shuffled a bunch of other guys, a couple other news drops. So we've been through this rigors. We know that it's possible that things can just blow up in that last 20 minutes. And so we scrambled. We made the lineups, the adjustments. We got the guys in there we needed. And now it wasn't easy and it wasn't fun, but it was fun once we got them in. And once we did in a lot, I felt great about our lineups. I put it right in Discord. I said it was tough. Hope everybody got everything updated, but it was well worth it. So yeah, it's a lot easier when you don't have those last minute changes. But as funny as it is, Andrew, I found when we're scrambling like that, because we know where we want to go with things, it is an advantage. It really helps us.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be ready for that and ready for the pivots. And that's why we dig into these rotations every day, the matchups, and we start early in the day to get ready for everything. And, that's part of the game. So I agree. If you can pivot, then you will have an edge. So great job. Let's see if we can do it again here on the 5-game slate, starting at 7 o'clock Eastern. We've got three of these 10 teams involved in a back-to-back. We've got some big injury news with some stars on this slate. So we'll go through that as we get to each game. But starting with Milwaukee in Detroit. Milwaukee only 4.5-point favorites with a 215.5 total because Middleton, Lopez, and Drew Holiday are all out. We've got Giannis probable, Hood probable, and Grayson Allen probable. And then on the Detroit side, Sadiq Bey probable. But break this game down for us, starting with that Milwaukee side.
Yeah, and you know what? Since we have the 5-game and it's you and I doing this, and it gives us a little extra time, I think it's time to introduce a couple of really key categories back into the mix here. Now, I know we have teams that have played 5, 6, 7, or 8 games. It's sort of all over the board, more of an average of like 6.5 games. But it's enough that we're getting a sample size. It's not ideal. I'd like to get about a dozen games to really dig into the numbers. But it's enough that it's worth looking at because there's so many teams that made changes, so many different dynamics that everything has shifted. So the two things I want to introduce back in today is just look at how teams are doing as far as points allowed, where they sit defensively, so that we can start, to see that pattern. And again, it's not a perfect science, but it gives us some input of who we want to look at, they're playing against, or who we need to avoid. The other part is usage. That's one of my biggest things that I use every day. And so I dug down for every team today. And by the way, it's no trade secret here. If you're preparing for an NBA slate, use basketballreference.com. I know Andrew and I have used it for years. It's phenomenal. You can dig down in the advanced stats, not only look at usage, but look at specific usage when people are on or off the floor. You can look back at previous games that they played each other. I mean, it's such a fantastic tool. So even though it's early in the season, I want to look at those usage numbers because I can't wait to get your response on some of these, Andrew, because there's some shocking ones. But there are teams that changed, 3 of their starters from last year and some 4. So it is worth a look, and hopefully, we can squeeze that in with each team. All right, the first thing I want to tell you right off the bat, since we're looking at the Bucks first, they were a solid defensive team last year, and that's why they won the championship. Right now, they rank 25th out of 30 teams, Andrew, in giving up points at 112 points a game. Does that surprise you?
A little bit, but they do play at a fast pace, and with those injuries plus the little championship hangover, I'm not shocked at that number.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. And pace definitely does affect that. There's no question about it. So, all right, so let's take a look at the usage numbers here real quick too, because these aren't going to be real surprising, and we certainly need to look with these guys out where it's going to go. So I'm giving you the usage percentage with everybody in, so we can remove the usage from the guys that are out and present it elsewhere. Giannis at 34, which is pretty stout. Nothing wrong with that. Middleton at 30. So those are normally our two go-to guys. Holiday being out at 21.4 usage definitely stings. And then, Brook being out, he was only being used at 13. So that's not a big loss there. Guys that we normally go to here are not the ones from a usage standpoint that have really made an impact. Now, again, don't yell at your computer or your phone and say, Coach, he's only played 2 games. But I know Bobby Portis has only played 2 games. I get it. But he's 30% usage when he's in there. So that makes him, with them being shorthanded, very usable to me. The other guy that I thought was very impressive is Justin. I'm sorry, I was calling him Justin for some reason. Jordan Nwora, who's 19%, which is pretty stout. And he's played in all 7 games. So that's a guy to look at. The guys that are down further that surprised me were Grayson Allen, who's a real shooter, only at 16. And then Pat Connaughton, who everybody's been jamming in, is 13. And George Hill is 12.7. So Connaughton and Hill, although they're getting a lot of play with everybody being shorthanded, are really not getting the usage that you would expect. And I think maybe, we need to look more at the guys like Portis and Nwora to get some more of that action.
Yeah, and with the 3 big guys out that you mentioned, 3 of the top 4, it's a game changer here against Detroit. And I do like some of these guys to slide in and be key plays tonight, or at least potential plays. Portis, 15 shots off the bench in the last game in limited minutes. He definitely came in and jacked it up. Nwora has been getting the most consistent usage out of those bench guys, but he hasn't been shooting well yet this year.
Right.
But the guy I'm really excited about tonight is Thanasis. He got 15 shots up as a starter last game, only 3,100 on DraftKings, 42 on FanDuel. He's locked in for me tonight, Coach. Are you interested in him?
I'm not, and I'll tell you why. I think that it is just, and you know me, when I sniff out a split of a position in minutes, I shy away. And I feel like now that Portis is in his 3rd game back, that Thanasis and Portis just split the minutes. So I get it. And I think both of those guys are playable, but I'm not going to play them just because I smell a timeshare coming.
I don't think you can fade Thanasis at 3,100. He just had 31 fantasy points. Could he have a dud and, put up 18 to 20? He could, but that's still 6x. The guy is such a hustle guy. He's just being out there that much. I think he's a lock to pay it off. Portis is,
right.
Portis, I don't think you need to play because he's mid 4K on both sites. But yeah, I could see him getting more than 19 minutes. I could see him paying it off. He's more of a GPP look to me. But I'm going to play baby Giannis, or at least in terms of his production over the years.
Well, I'll be rooting for you, man. I just not, again, even though it's only a 5-game slate, I just don't want any timeshare issues if I can avoid it. That's my whole deal.
Well, what about the rest of the Bucks here? Are you going to go Giannis or one of these fill-in guys like Hill or Connaughton or Allen?
Well, Detroit stinks. We know that. But we like the fact that Milwaukee's playing at a good pace. Giannis is super expensive, but on a 5-game slate, you can get away sometimes fading a Giannis, and he's not crushed his number lately either. But you can get away with fading him on those giant slates because you can slide other guys around. But I'm going with Giannis here. He's my one pay up guy. If Detroit being at home can just hang a little bit, I mean, they've got their guys back. Bay and Grant and Stewart are all playing. So, if they could just keep it close enough that Giannis gets somewhat of a full run. We know he never plays a full fourth quarter when they're winning, but I just don't want to fade him here, especially with Bam being questionable and some of the bigger inside guys. I really don't like any of the other bigs to blow it out. So it's Giannis by default for me. And then after really studying those numbers and digging deeper, I'm going to think about getting my value possibly from a Noara. And on the opposite side, I may go Bobby Portis in a GPP.
Okay. I think George Hill at 3,800 is playable on DraftKings. Allen and Connaughton, sure they could do it, but they're not my favorite because we don't need to play $5 here, right?
No,
How about the Detroit side? What do you have there for usage and defensive numbers?
Yeah, let me click over here. Okay, Detroit, as far as allowing points per game, let's see. They are in, that moved around on me. They're only 14th, which isn't bad. Now, they're giving up only that 107.2, but that's because they're playing at a slow pace. They're not efficient offensively. They use a ton of the shot clock. And so even though they're only the middle of the pack defensively, that's a little deceiving because they're so poor so far this season on offense. So you got to look at both sides of that coin for sure. And then as far as the usage goes, right now we've got what you would sort of expect here. You've got the main guy, Jeremy Grant, at 25.6. But you're going to love this one because I know we both like this guy and we play him even though he's been coming off the bench. But he's sort of squeezing out Isaiah Stewart a little bit, and that's Kelly Olynyk. He has played in 6 games. They've played 6. He's played all 6. He's at 24% usage, man. That's a good number for a guy that's lower priced. He's only 1.6 below Grant on highest usage for the team. But now you've got a new guy in the mix. Now, I will admit that one game is a bit of a small sample, but Cade Cunningham, and I got a feeling, this is my gut feeling, you might like Cade Cunningham tonight. I always try to feed off of that Andrew basketball energy, but he did get 23% usage in his first game, and he looked like a player. And they just, they brought him along slow. I think he's fine. They just rested him that game. They don't want to play him on a back-to-back. So, you've also got a couple other choices here. Sadiq Bey at 22% also. So there's a lot of sharing going on. And then if you have the courage, I generally don't, to play Josh Jackson, he's at 21%. So other than that, it's really no one's worth mentioning, and including the guy I've always backed, Isaiah Stewart, paltry 15%. He has just shifted down. So based on usage and based on who I'm looking at in this game, Jeremy Grant has kept them in some games. If I'm going Giannis, I'm going to need somebody on this side of the ball. But I like Kelly Olynyk's price. I'm interested in Cade Cunningham as well.
Yeah, my favorite is Cade Cunningham on DraftKings at 3,600.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think he's mispriced over there.
Yep.
Yeah, he was 1 for 8 in his first game, but he got up 8 shots on only 19 minutes, 7 rebounds. He played great this summer, so I think he'll do better in his second game. 5,000 on FanDuel, don't necessarily need to go there. So that's why you really got to look at each site.
Yeah.
The bigs here, that's the type of mix-up that I don't really like right now because, like you said, Stewart, his minutes are way down.
Yeah.
He just hasn't been on. And then Grant and Olynyk, yeah, either one of them could do it. But Grant, Olynyk, Bay, in the mid-tier, I'm just probably not going to go there today. It's, and then Josh Jackson coming off the bench, assuming he will. I think he will. Probably not the day for him either for me. So it's probably Cade Cunningham or bust.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. I still think Olynyk's a decent price, but I'm not
Yeah.
racing to the, window for him either.
Yeah. All right, let's go to game 2. Your Mavericks are going to host Miami
Yeah,
on
I'm not excited
TNT.
about that.
Heat favored by 2, total 211. Dallas is on the front end of a back-to-back. They're going to go to San Antonio tomorrow. Injury news, Bam questionable.
Yeah,
Strus is out for Miami.
yeah.
And then on the Dallas side, Kleba is out. Porzingis questionable. So big turning points there with Bam especially. What do you have on the Miami side?
Well, the reason I'm not so excited about it is Miami's number one in the league defensively. Of course, we knew they would be. I mean, they put together. Spoelstra has all these defensive specialists, with Butler and of course PJ, etc. So they're only giving up 97 points a game through their first 6 games. If you're holding teams in the NBA under 100 on a consistent basis, that's pretty damn good. So that scares me for sure. And then the Mavericks aren't exactly chopped liver on defense. They rank 6th, so they have outperformed what a lot of people thought they would do defensively so far. But again, does some of that have to do with the fact that they haven't been as good offensively? I believe so. But let's look at the advanced stats here. Usage for the Miami Heat. Now, you want to take a stab because this surprised me, brother. Who's number one usage? And he's played in all 6 games for the Miami Heat.
Hero.
You're right. You're too sharp, man. You're much sharper than you look. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, he's 30% usage. So there's the reason we've been loving on Hero, and he has performed it and done it. Jimmy Butler right behind him at 28, and then Bam at 27. So the question is, if Bam's out, where does all that usage go? Does it fly to Dwayne Dedmon, who's at 17% usage off the bench? Or do they play smaller? That'll be the big question. If Bam, this is one of those scenarios that we talk about. You can't really break down a team and completely, go after a guy unless if someone's going to play or not. And Bam's such a massive part of that team. Not only does he affect them defensively, but offensively against a Dallas porous interior defense. If Bam plays and doesn't have restrictions, he's one of my favorite plays as well. But if he sits, that shuffles the deck. I think then you got to look at Hero, Butler, and Dedmon from the Miami side.
Yeah, I like those 3. Yeah, if Bam is out, Dedmon I love. Only played 17 minutes in the last game, but had 5 fouls and almost
he
had a
was in
double-double.
massive foul trouble.
Yeah. Butler, 9,100 on DraftKings. I like that price a lot. A little tougher on FanDuel, 10,000.
Yeah.
Hero, I like on both sites. And then the other price that jumped out at me is Lowry on FanDuel. He's 5,900. He hasn't been shooting it a ton, but played well in the last game. And I just think that's too cheap for him.
It is cheap. I will say, though, he's just over 15% usage, and he was at almost 30% usage last year in Toronto.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't played him at all this year, but tonight might be the night on FanDuel.
Yeah.
With the Dallas side here, with Porzingis questionable and Kleba out, we might get another spot start from Bullock. Other than that, do you think it will be Luka, THJ, DFS, and Powell as usual?
Yeah, I do. Losing Kleba was just a monstrosity. He was playing fantastic. I mean, not on both ends of the floor. He was hitting threes, blocking shots. Yeah, I'm sick about losing him. And it's a nasty back thing too, which is
right.
Never know how long that's going to take.
Right. Now, in terms of fantasy plays tonight, you mentioned that great defense. I'm not too high on Luka here. Maybe on FanDuel at 10-4, but I don't think I'm going to pay over 11,000 for him on DraftKings. And nobody else, again, jumping off the page in this tough matchup. Brunson is pretty cheap on FanDuel, but we have some other value plays that I like. So Dallas might be a fade for me. Anybody you like here?
I hate to say it, but no, I mean, I really don't. I don't like this game for the Mavs being shorthanded. Who the hell knows if Porzingis is going to play or not? Probably not. With Kleba out and them being able to focus and Jimmy Butler being able to focus on Luka, I'm not paying up for him. I won't cry in my soup if he has one of his monster games, but I just don't think that this is the right scenario for him, and that saves the cash and allows me to get up to Giannis. But as far as the usage goes, let's take a quick look at that here. For some reason, it switched me off that page. Well, of course, Luka. How about a nice 35% usage, Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
That is hard to fade, but if you're ever going to fade him, Miami and Butler, wouldn't that be the spot? And Tucker and all those guys?
Yes, it would.
As dingy as Porzingis is, and as much I don't think he's going to play, he's still getting 30% usage when he's in there. So they definitely need him. Where does all that go? So here's a question I have for you. Does your man, your favorite player in the league, Boban Marinovic, at 29% usage when he gets in there, do you think he gets a look tonight?
If you have multiple bigs out and I was coaching, he would play every game and more minutes than he does. But Willie Cauley-Stein's been in the rotation. They've got Moses Brown. So, I can't say that he'll play and that he'll play enough minutes to be relevant.
I agree.
Because I'm not in charge down there.
Risk it either. Yeah, I'm with you. But when he does, he gets his number, right?
Oh, yeah. Almost every time.
And then if you listen to this group of usage, nothing makes me jump out of my seat. The Mavs are 4-2, but I just am not real comfortable with their offense right now. A lot of people like to play Brunson, but his price is snuck up. He's at 20%. Brown 19, Hardaway 18, Finney-Smith 17, Ntilikina that's in the rotation now at 16, Dwight Powell at a paltry 14, Bullock at 13.5. I mean, I just don't see playing any of those guys that, on any given particular night, especially when you're going against a good defensive team, that really jump out for me. So this could be my first full fade of the Mavericks this year. So I apologize. Dirk's swearing in the background here, but we'll just have to get past it.
All right, game 3, Coach. Sacramento and Utah, 9:00 Eastern. Highest total on the board at 220. Utah favored by 9. And this is a front end for Sacramento. They're going to go home and play New Orleans tomorrow. Injury news. I don't think I've got anything written down here, Coach. So
that never happens.
Seriously. So talk to us about the Sacramento side.
Well, let's talk defensively, first of all, for these two teams so that we know what we're pairing up against. Sacramento's 24th in the league at a 111.8, so not defending that great. And, of course, Utah, what else is new? They're in the top group. They're third at only allowing 98.3. So I know this is a high total, and Sacramento really pushes the pace. But, that number 3 ranking by Utah consistently has always kept them right in the flow. So, that makes me not as excited about, the high level of points in this game. But maybe on the Utah side, it can be a little bit stronger. So I'm trying to reload my usage. Stuff keeps unloading on my computer for some reason here. But you asked me Sacramento first, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so on the Sacramento side, I mean, the bottom line is Utah going to be able to slow them down? If they're not, and I can't wait till next year when they stop allowing that breakaway, fouls where they can just run a stinking break the way it's supposed to be. Usage-wise, it's pretty simple here. You've got De'Aaron Fox. He's got the ball in his hands. He's 29.2% usage, which you got to love. And, on any given night, he can get it done. It's interesting because when they have Conley in there, he does a decent job generally against the big boys. but not when Clarkson rotates in. Then it becomes a whole different scenario. So I do think at the 29.2 usage rate for Fox, he's going to get a decent amount of opportunities. The odd thing is Hield's coming off the bench, but he's played in all 6 games, and he's managed, even off the bench, to get 26% usage, which is pretty high for a guy coming off the bench. So I think you can look at him. Barnes has had some good games, but his price is just ridiculous at 22%. A guy that I've played too much is Rashawn Holmes, because his price always is able to squeeze in, but he's only 17%. And the guy that's taken the biggest step back, Andrew, is Halliburton. He's only at 16% usage. He's tied with Davion Mitchell. So now you've got those two guys somewhat in a timeshare. So, after Fox spending up, maybe going the cheaper route with Hield, but, against that Utah defense, again, I'm not jumping out of my seat for Sacramento.
Yeah, Hield is interesting. You got to love, he's averaging over 10 3-point attempts per game. So he just comes up, he just comes in and chucks. And so that you kind of like that on DraftKings. You get the bonus. He's only 5,800. He's playable there for me. Barnes, like you said, his price is up from last year, but playing well. When these two teams played earlier, he was 25 and 15. So he's playable for me. But then, Halliburton, like you said, as a starter, just a different dynamic. Different for him than coming off the bench. So I kind of lean Hield over Halliburton. And Fox, I like the usage, but I don't like his shooting so far this year. I'd like to see him get that turned around before I invest in him. On this slate, I'm not looking there.
I want to mention real quickly, not to interrupt, but, I look at Ja Morant and De'Aaron Fox in this a very similar light. And this year, Ja Morant is knocking down those threes and hitting shots, and his percentages are way up. He's shooting 40% from 3. That's what Fox needs to do. If Fox can put those pieces together, then those two are two of the best young point guards. But right now, Ja's got that edge on him for the reason you exactly said. Fox is not consistently hitting that jumper.
Absolutely. On the Utah side, in that earlier matchup, Rudy had one of his big games, 17 and 20. Yep. He's playable for me at just over 8,000 on both sites. Center only, which is one of the issues on this site. There are a few guys, even on FanDuel, who are center only.
Yeah.
So just going to have to live with that. But, you mentioned that poor defense for Sacramento. I'm interested in Mitchell, especially on FanDuel at only 8,000. He was strong against Sacramento earlier. Conley was solid. Clarkson, those 3 guards are all in the mix for me. So I'm looking at them and possibly Gobert tonight.
Yeah, Gobert's put up some big numbers. I have to give it to him. He really has. For me, looking at this usage number just solidifies the fact that Donovan Mitchell is one of my favorite plays on the slate. I think he's priced too low. This is a great matchup against Sacramento. He's getting a robust 34% usage for the Jazz, which that's a big number. And I think that he's a great play in this fit here at that price. So I'm going to have him in everything, both cash and GPP. The guy that's second by a long shot here too is Jordan Clarkson at 32% usage, and I didn't see that. I haven't paid as close attention to Clarkson. I played him a ton last year, but with that kind of usage and the minutes he's getting off the bench and his price, which has remained low, I think he's a terrific play in this matchup as well. So those two guys are where I'm focusing. To give you an idea on the big drop in usage after that, you've got Bogdanovich at 22, but Conley at 19. Gobert's only 17, believe it or not. He creates all his own stuff off of offensive rebounds and everything else. But the other guys that have sort of faded away, Ingles at 13, your old buddy Royce O'Neal at 8. That stings. So, you're starting to get a little bit of bench usage here. Whiteside, when he's in, is a respectable 16%. He'll be similar, not quite as dominant as like Drummond was for us with Embiid out. But if Rudy takes a game off, you're going to have Whiteside jump in on everybody's lineups at some point too. But for me, Andrew, it's all about Donovan Mitchell and sprinkle in some value Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, and Ingles, speaking of usage, is one of the perfect examples of if a guy is out, he really jumps up, especially as a starter. But with all these guys playing tonight and him coming off the bench, he's a fade for me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, Coach, before we get to these last two games, just want to invite folks to join us for lineups tonight, dfscoachtalk.com. Grab a membership. We will invite you into our Discord. You'll get our DraftKings coaches clipboard, and then you're going to get full lineups on FanDuel and Yahoo, cash lineups and GPP. What else? Did I miss anything there?
Well, I do have a question for you. If I happen to join Coach Talk on a basketball membership, do I
Yes?
just get basketball?
No, we handle four sports here, Coach.
You're
You know
kidding.
that. You get
Wow.
football, baseball. I think there's a baseball game tonight.
There
As a
is a
matter of
bit of the
fact,
World Series.
Game 5, and PGA as well. 2 times a week we give out lineups. So yeah, jump in. You get all of our lineups for all of our sports, no matter what the membership is called. It's just based on a length of time. So grab the 3-day pass, 5-day pass, grab a half season, join some of the other folks who've done that recently, and become part of the family.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube right now, quick thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, give us a little comment, and hit the little alarm button in the top corner so you know when our podcast posts. We really, really appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, game 4, the other TNT game, 10 o'clock Eastern, New Orleans in Phoenix. The Suns are favored by 11, 216.5 total. New Orleans on the front end of a back-to-back. They're going to go to Sacramento tomorrow. Lots of injury news here in the morning, Coach. On Tuesday, we've got Ingram, Temple, and Devontae Graham all questionable for New Orleans. And then on the Phoenix side, Campaign is still out, and Ayton is questionable with the leg issue. So kick things off for us here on the New Orleans side.
Well, let's talk defensively here because this game has a lot of potential. I think this game could be where you grab a guy or two from one side or the other here and match it up because right now New Orleans is 22nd, giving up 111 points per game. And the shocking thing is the Phoenix Suns that were in the top 5 defensively all year. Now, granted, they've only played 5 games, so it's a very small sample size, but they haven't played the toughest schedule in the world, and they're giving up 110.2, which is like 10 points over what they were last year. So for whatever reason, defensively, they're not clicking on all cylinders. So I think what that does is it opens it up a little bit for a little bit more DFS ownership, because a lot of times last year we got into the point where we were saying, okay, Phoenix is locked down, etc., and then they have their 3 studs that are dominating. So we did a lot of fading of Phoenix games, but it's a little bit different scenario this year for whatever the reason being. BI's the news. I mean, he's 31% usage for them. If he plays, he's a great play. If he sits, then that usage has to go elsewhere. So where is that going to flow? I'll tell you, the Pelicans are a hot mess, man. I don't know about you, but I don't know what happened. This team had so much potential to be such a good team when they got that Zion pick, and then boom, and then now they're just shambles. But again, injuries have something to do with that. So can we really break this game down not knowing who's in, who's out? Not really. So I'll just say real quickly, if Ingram's in, he's an interest for me. If he's out, the usage shows Devontae Graham at 24%, which is way higher than I thought. So he's a consideration. Followed closely by Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 23 and Joe Val at 22. So I'm going to look at Graham, Walker, and Joe Val, not obviously all 3 of them, but probably one of them if BI is out. After that, you can consider Josh Hart. We know he can throw a 10 rebound game on the board. His usage isn't up there yet, but he's just come back. He's only played 3 games. So not doing somersaults here. I almost hope Ingram is out of this game, because I could even feel good about an Alexander Walker, Joe Val kind of 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I'm the same as you on this New Orleans side. Graham, he's getting up a bunch of shots, so he's in play for me. If BI's out, you could look at Hart, you could look at Walker, but Joe Val's my other primary target here. Really, just a new lease on life for him. Monster
Yeah.
double doubles.
Whew.
So I do like him. The problem again for him, he is center only on both sites. So FanDuel is going to be the real challenge here. Do you go with
Yes.
Joe Val? Do you go with Rudy Gobert? If Bam is out, do you go with Dedmon? So that's the beauty of two lineups, a cash lineup and a
Definitely.
GPP. Um,
Yeah.
but not going to mess with anybody else on the New Orleans side. And I will add the record is terrible at 1-6, but they have had a bunch of close losses, and of course
Yeah.
Zion is out. So I want to see what it's like when Zion comes back. And if they can't get it together with Zion back, then I'm really concerned because they've made some moves. So we'll see. Phoenix.
It's going to be. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the frustrating thing is when Zion does come back, and we still don't know when that is yet. He's out of shape dramatically. So it's going to be, fostering in those minimal minutes and getting him back in the
Right.
flow. And,
Oh, yeah.
just a DFS nightmare because he scoops usage away from people, but not enough to pay his price. So I'm not looking forward to this mess with the Pelicans.
No, that'll be a good week or two of just avoiding the situation until he gets his full minutes.
Yeah.
All right, on the Phoenix side here with Ayton questionable, that's newsworthy. If he's out, we're going to see a lot of JaVale McGee. One more center to throw into the mix.
Yeah.
And then with the rest of the Phoenix guys here, I'm interested in Booker tonight. You mentioned the poor defense. He's really stepped it up here last couple games with his scoring. So I'm looking there. Bridges at his 5K range price, he'll pay that off one of these days with a bunch of stocks and some threes. This could be the night. But that's probably about it for me. Booker, maybe Bridges, and then McGee potentially if Ayton is out. But I probably lean towards a guy like Dedmon if Dedmon is starting.
Well, to show you how DFS can change on a day-to-day basis, I very well, this is no joke. If Bam sits and Ayton sits, the core of my interior on all sites, I'm not joking, it will be JaVale McGee and Dwayne Dedmon. Now, isn't that crazy? But you're not going to get better value for two guys that have proven statistically that their usage is very good when they play. And it supports here. JaVale McGee is fourth on the team in usage for the minutes that he gets in there. He hasn't played a ton, but he's played in all 5 games, and he's at a real healthy 23% usage. And we know that McGee, when he does get in, is a good, points per minute, as long as he doesn't get in foul trouble, which is a possibility. But I like him a lot here. I hope Ayton sits because if I can have Dedmon and McGee and feel like I'm going to get 7x from those guys, which I would based on their numbers, usage, and the defensive teams that they're playing, that really will let me get the guy. Like I agree with you here. I'd like to add Booker to the mix of the key guys that I want in Mitchell and Giannis. He's a 33% usage guy, which would you believe Chris Paul's only 19? I don't know if Paul's finally seeing age but there's regression big time with Paul. He was second on the team in usage last year. Now he's 8th. So, I'm sure that'll change, small sample size, but it is what the number is. So I'm with you on Booker. I really love that play. And McGee, 100% play for me. If Ayton is out, probably not going to have the guts to play him unless in a GPP if Ayton plays. But after that, I'll tell you what, Phoenix has been shockingly underwhelming. I don't know if it's, like you say, they're just flat after making the finals, or I don't know, but the focus isn't there, and they have that group of guys back. Paul, like I say, numbers have been poor. 19% usage. A guy we used to smash with last year, Mikal Bridges, who you mentioned, is only 18% usage. And even like guys like Cam Johnson, who was starting to show promise, 15% usage and not hitting shots. So, yeah, a little south on Phoenix right now. Definitely want to fire up Booker, and then hopefully we'll see what the news brings with the rest of the guys.
Absolutely. All right. Last game of the night, we have Houston in LA to take on the Lakers.
Wonderful.
These guys just played on Halloween, and Lakers won a low-scoring one, 95-85. The total tonight, 217. Lakers favored by 10.5, and some significant injuries here. Tice, Jayshawn Tate, both questionable for Houston. On the Lakers side, LeBron listed as questionable with the ankle. Dwight Howard questionable, and Ellington still questionable.
It's a headache, man. I mean, who do you think LeBron plays again?
I do. Yep.
Do you? Okay. Because I mean, we're in that position where, we're back to this Lakers not knowing what the hell's going on. And
well, you notice I didn't mention AD, who's listed as probable. Not going to mention that.
No. And it comes down to you've got to be smart, and you can't just lock your lineup in a half an hour before the slate locks and then, go about your business. If you really want to win consistently in DFS, you need to follow it, or you need to come with us. Go, DFS CoachTalk.com. Come on and join us, because we'll do this homework. We're going to painstakingly watch all this news as it develops. We're going to follow it through and see who's in, who's out. But it is coming back to that scenario where you have to leave a late swap spot for a Laker. I mean, it really does, because in any given night, somebody's in, somebody's out, or one or two guys are out, and then you get a play that you just can't avoid. So, that's where you have to be strategic here. And the games the nice is they're step ladder tonight. They're pretty much games starting all throughout the night, even though there's only 5. So you get some pivots set for the 10 and 10:30 Eastern game, but it makes it tough. But we're talking Houston first, I believe, correct?
Correct.
All right, usage for Houston. Kevin Porter at 24%, Christian Wood at 24%, Şengün off the bench 24%, Jalen Green 23%. So that tells you right there, can you find a standout in those guys? I mean, there's 5 guys. Granted, Şengün's not getting as many minutes, but they've all played in all 6 games, except for no, they have all played in all 6 games, and they're all sharing the ball. And we know that Green and Porter are going to chuck and duck. We know that Eric Gordon on any given night at 20%, he's just barely behind those guys. He can get it done. So, man, Andrew, I hope you have some information for me here that can sway me. But I look at this situation of Woods, Şengün, Green, Gordon, Porter, and I think I don't see a guy that I feel can really separate themselves. And that's not even mentioning Tate and Tice and some of these other guys that are getting minutes. It's almost like they know that they're a horrible team. They're going to try to get a bunch of guys minutes. They want to showcase guys like Eric Gordon, because they have already stated with John Wall and Gordon, they're going to probably move them because they're in a complete rebuild. So you got a mixture of that. They're trying to get some of the young guys minutes, like Şengün and Josh Christopher and some of the other guys off the bench as well. Nawaba even getting a little bit of time. So it's a cluster for me. I hate playing their guys. They often disappoint. Christian Wood's the most dependable, but he's so overpriced. And then, as rookies, Porter and Green can have good games, but they also can turn the ball over 10 times. So I don't know, man. The jury's out for me on Houston.
Yeah, for me tonight, it's just a GPP look. I'm not really interested in these guys in cash, but at their price tags, Porter and Green, they get up enough shots where they could do damage.
They could.
If Tice is out, then Şengün becomes playable for me. He is power forward eligible on FanDuel. But if everybody plays, I'm looking to fade Houston. And it's just a strong defense over there, and the inexperience, the youth of Houston. They showed in that last matchup here, only putting up 85 against the Lakers. So just not expecting much out of the Houston side.
I do want to let me jump in because I was shocked at this stat too, and I apologize. I forgot to mention it like I did with the other 4 games. The defensive points allowed. I've respected LA's defense and their interior defense, with their big guns in there, but they're 26th out of 30 teams. Can you believe that? They're giving up over 112 points a game. Now, granted, the AD missed a game or two and LeBron missed a game. So it's this, how much do you read into the stats? The bottom line is this, and this is something I wanted to mention to you, and I wanted our listeners and members to hear. They gave away all their perimeter defense last year. I have no idea who was organizing, let's put this team together of Monk and Nunn and these guys. But they in the last year or two, and when they won the championship, they had guys like Danny Green, Avery Bradley, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who they desperately missed. Those guys are premier perimeter defenders. They don't have any of those guys. And so you're seeing that maybe the interior is decent, although centers have been hurting them lately. They're just not defending. And until they address that situation, I don't think they're a contender to win it. So I wanted to bring that up here because they're 26th. It's early, but it does show on the floor. And Houston, for what it's worth, is 15th, in the middle of the pack. But, again, slower play and non-efficiency. So I wanted to throw that to you.
Yeah, I think the Lakers are a good example of a team where the small sample size is a little bit more important because of the injuries that you mentioned, the occasional absences that we've had. And, one thing I've noticed is they are making moves even in game with defense as a focus. One game early in the season, they pulled Monk after a defensive lapse, and in went Avery Bradley. And, he got the start last game. They are missing Caruso as well from last year.
Not to mention him. He's a dog. Look what he's doing for Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's why Avery Bradley started the last game.
Yeah.
And, interesting that he's got that matchup against Houston, and he got 30 minutes. He's out there for defense. And so I think it turns around right now. And I think they're sending the message behind closed doors that if you want to play, you got to play defense.
That's a good point.
So, and they get the great matchup against Houston to show off their defensive prowess. And it's looking like Russ and LeBron, AD will all be out there tonight. Nobody really smashed. They didn't need to against Houston. So again, I'm just not probably looking at any of those 3 in the cash lineup. Bradley is interesting on DraftKings at 3,000. He's not shooting much, but he could get a few steals and pay that off. But just not really interested in the Lakers here. And the bench, Melo, talk about revenge game against Houston. 23 points, 6 stocks. So he's probably my favorite play tonight if you're going to go with the Laker. But mostly a pass game for me on both sides.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about it either, but I wouldn't mind having some exposure. It's funny. It's the nightmare that we expected is starting to show in the statistics for usage with the Lakers. Everybody wants to roster LeBron and Davis and Westbrook. Sometimes I'm still sour on Westbrook. I did have him in that one big game he had, but I'm telling you, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but when James and Davis are both playing, especially LeBron, Russ just is the third wheel. Don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to play him at, almost 10,000 on DraftKings. I don't think this is the night.
His price is too high for being the third banana, But here's the nightmare, though. LeBron, even though he's played 5 games, the other 2 played 7, 29%. Anthony Davis, 29%. Westbrook, 28%.
There you go.
Yeah, how frustrating is that? And how when all 3 of them are playing in a game like this, where they're a double-digit favorite, they could blow them out. All 3 of them aren't going to play extended minutes at all in blowouts. I just don't want to go there. Now if LeBron sits for some reason, then Westbrook, I think, becomes the play, or even Davis. So again, I'm with you. When it's the big three all playing, it's very hard to pay up for one of them unless there's a huge mismatch with the other team. Cheap on the cheap wise, really the only guy I trust at this point is Carmelo, and he's still scary. He can throw a dud on the board, but he is playing with a lot of enthusiasm. He's been fun to watch this late in his career that he's playing that hard, but 21% usage for a guy that's played in all 7 games, and he's getting 20 minutes a game. That's pretty much what you expect for him at his price. But that whole other bunch, no thanks. Rondo, Monk, Bazemore, Reeves, Bradley, I get it. They need his defense. Jordan Howard, just a nightmare. And, Reeves, I know he's getting in the rotation a little bit, but I played him the other night and sat and watched that whole game. He's not quite ready yet, in my opinion. I know he's getting minutes and he's in the rotation, but yeah, the Lakers are just a really garbage DFS team all of a sudden, because you got 3 real expensive guys that split usage and somewhat of a bunch of chumps after that. I hate to say that to the Lakers fans, but it is what it is.
Yeah, plus there's some inconsistency. Rondo didn't play in the last game. Does he jump back in the rotation? You just can't quite trust those rotations yet. So
no, not at all.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to put our lineups together on the stuff that we can trust and we feel good about. So again, jump in with us, dfscoachtalk.com, and then we'll be back tomorrow. Coach will for another podcast, 7 days a week in the NBA. We'll have a golf podcast tomorrow. So stick with us. We appreciate all your support and see if we can crush it tonight. So on behalf of Coach and the entire DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. We'll see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.